forward, and there's a simple way to explain it. So that's what we're here for. And let us begin. Okay, just to recount, yesterday we learned there's a concept called Hefner. You can mafker something. Mafker something means you own it. And, right. And you give a right to somebody else to own it. So when do you lose ownership of it? So we learned yesterday, the way Rabbi Yochanan explained it is that Rabbi Yossi holds, hold on. Okay. Hi, Louis. We just began. We're just 2 lines from the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Beis. So we learned yesterday that the Rabbi Yossi holds, and it's a very if somebody would be mafkir something, you still own it. You still own it. That's the way we're understanding Rabbi Yossi. You still own it, and therefore Rabbi Yossi says that, let's say 2 people are walking and they're mudar hana from each other, or one's mudar hana and one needs the bread. You can't just say, oh, it's hefker, and now you're taking it, because as long as nobody took it, it still belongs to the original owner, right? I think in American law it's that way too. If I take my old car and put it in the street in the middle of the avenue and say, hey, hefker, it's not mine, it's still considered mine, and I'm liable to it until somebody else takes it. So Rabbi Yossi holds that hefker doesn't work until somebody else takes it. That's way we're understanding Rabbi Yossi. Even though the Gemara disproved that, the Gemara still is going with that Rabbi Yossi holds, as long as somebody didn't take possession of it, hefker doesn't work until somebody else takes it. Otherwise, it's still considered yours. The Rabbanan hold is what we normally understand hefker. As soon as you're mafkir something, you say anybody can have it, it belongs to anybody, and then you're not the owner anymore. That's it. You lost the ownership anymore, just by saying that.
Yeah.
So let's read the Gemara. Hi. Oh, Sheldon, we just began. Very simple. Okay. 3 lines from the bottom of Mem Gimel Amud Beis. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Hamafkir esodeo. Somebody has a field. Let's say he has a wheat field. Imagine somebody with a wheat field. And he says it's hefker. Now, by saying it's hefker, what happens? So then, if somebody else takes possession of that field, lucky him, he got a field, but also he's not required to take off trumas and maasros, because he doesn't have to give anything to the Kohen or to the Levi, because since he got it from hefker, it's potter from trumas and maasros. Only if you grew wheat in your field and it's your field, then you're required to give off the trumas or maasros to the Kohen and Levi. But if you acquired the field by picking up something for free that was abandoned, then you're potter from giving trumas or maasros. So what happens? Hamafke esodeu. Somebody made his field hefker. So kol shlosh yomim, the first 3 days, the Brisa says yochol lachzer boy. He can retract and say, I want my field back, and by doing so, since he could do that, it means that what basically we're saying is for the first 3 days, hefker doesn't take place. We'll explain that in a minute. But imagine this, hefker, it doesn't work for the first 3 days. Mikan ve'elech, from here and on, from 3 days and beyond, ein yochel lachzer boy. You can't just say, oh, I want it back. You have to do an action to show you're acquiring it. By verbally say you want it back, it doesn't work anymore. So basically, even though nobody else acquired the field, since you abandoned your field and you said it's hefker, so after the first 3 days, then automatically the hefker starts, and then whoever will acquire the field after the first 3 days will be potter in trumas and maasros. But you can't verbally retract it. Now, so this is the brisa goes according to the Rabbanan. Obviously, it would seem that it goes according to Rabbanan, because what effectively this part of the brisa is saying is that even though nobody else acquired the property, it's still not yours anymore. It's still not yours. You relinquished the property after 3 days. It's now in the public domain. So therefore, you can't say I want it back, because it's not yours to want back. So that's.
But according to the Gemara's Shula Shunim Regilim, then it's a chazuk because it does belong to nobody, anybody.
Yeah, but but here we're talking
about...
Yes.
Shula Shunim Regilim.
Yes, okay. But here...
It's not that somebody doesn't pay it, but it's 3 years. Not just in the time somebody should pay.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, but here we're talking about 3 days, 3 shloshi yomim that I take. And as Matan Feld, he says his field is Hefker. So after 3 days, even though it's nobody acquired it, it's considered Hefker. The question is, if you say Hefker and say, I want my field, I'm abandoning my field, then why the first 3 days is it considered yours and you could retract it? You see, by saying you could retract what you're saying is basically saying you didn't relinquish your field. You didn't abandon it. So why by the first 3 days we say you could retract what you're saying, and even if somebody comes to acquire that field during the first 3 days, he has to give it back. Why do we say that Hefker doesn't take effect till after 3 days that you made the statement? And the answer is because they were fakers. And what people would try to do is, think about this. You own a big wheat field. And you have a big trumas amaisrus that you're going to have to give off. And you're a little greedy about the whole thing. So you want to get away around it. So how are you going to launder this field? What you're going to say is, I'm making it Hefker. Then you can acquire it back. So you're going to acquire it back. So you're now potter from trumas amaisrus, and you just knocked off a big expense. So that's why they said that if you make Hefker the field for the first 3 days, it's not considered Hefker. It doesn't take effect. Therefore, we want to make sure that you really, really mean it to abandon the field. And after 3 days that it's standing out there where everybody knows that you will mafker the field, so that gives other people a chance to acquire it before you do. And therefore, if the other person gets it before you do, then he gets it. So that's why they said the first 3 days, no chance. It's not Hefker. And therefore, it's not Hefker. You're still the owner of that field. So you could retract it and you say, I don't want it to be Hefker after 3 days. So you could say, oh, the game's over. But let's say you said it's Hefker, and 3 days go by and you still didn't retract. Once the 72 hours go by, so even if nobody acquired the field after that 72 hours, by the 78th hour, let's say, still, but you can't say, I want it back. And it's not automatically. You have to acquire the field. You have to show ownership of the field again. So therefore, again, according to this part of the Brisa, seems to be going according to the Chachamim, that it's possible to relinquish your ownership of a field even though nobody else acquired it. And that's Hefker. Let's go to the top of the page of Mem Dalet. But now the second part of the Brisa is Omar, a person said, Tehei Sodezu Mufkeris Luyim Echad. A person said that I want this to be Hefker for a day. What does that mean if he wants to be Hefker for a day? What it means to say is that if nobody acquires the field, and nobody acquires the field, after a day it should go back to me. If somebody acquires the field during the first day, it's his. But if nobody acquires the field, then it goes back to me. So a guy said, let this field be Hefker for a day. I'm giving everybody a chance to own this field just one day, or the Shabbos achas, or he said it for 1 week, l'chodesh echad, or 1 month, l'shona achas, or 1 year, l'shavua achas, or for one shmita. So here l'shavua doesn't mean Shabbos means a week. Shavua means a whole 7 years. For 7 years, he's saying my field should be Hefker. If nobody acquires my field during the Hefker, they leave it abandoned, then it goes back to me. So the Mishnah says, the Brisa continues, Ad shaloi zacha bo. If nobody took a hold of the field, it just remained abandoned, right? As long as it remained abandoned during that first day, Yachal lachsaboy, he can get it back. Why? Because as long as somebody didn't acquire the field, you still remain the owner of the field. Who does that sound like? Rabbi Yossi. As long as nobody, let's say it just remains in limbo. Nobody acquired the field, whether you said I want it back or somebody else acquired the field. That's the point, that if nobody else acquired the field, then you can take it back by verbally saying, I don't want this hefker. And that stops the hefker. As soon as you say that, somebody comes and acquires the field, it's too late because it comes back to you. But when you acquired the field, somebody else acquired the field. Let's get this part. Bain who? Because if somebody acquired the field, let's say acher, somebody acquired the field. So then you cannot take back the field. Why can't you take back the field? Because somebody else took it already. And once he has it, you're no more the owner of it. So now you see that this part of the Brisa seems to be going according to Rabbi Yossi, because what determines transfer of ownership by Hefker, according to the second part of the Brisa, is Mishazachaba. When somebody took ownership of it, then you don't own it anymore, and that's why you can't say it back, call it back. Once somebody else gets it, you can't call it back. But in the first part of the Brisa, which we said that after 3 days, no matter whether somebody got it or whether somebody didn't get it, it's not yours anymore. So then we say, Ein Yochel, you can't call it back. That seems like according to Rabbanim. So that's the question of the Gemara. Reisha Rabbanim, the first part of this Brisa seems to go according to the Rabbanim, who hold that you can relinquish ownership of an item by saying it's Hefker, even though nobody claimed it. And Seifa, according to the end of the Brisa, Rabbi Yossi goes according to Rabbi Yossi, who holds that as long as somebody didn't acquire ownership of it, it's still considered yours. And therefore, if it's still considered yours, that's why you can call it back. So how could it be one Brisa has two different authors, Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi? Now, what the Ram goes ahead and explains over here, that even according to the second part of the Brisa, where a person said that the field should be hefker for a day or a week, how come we don't delay it? Maybe why isn't Rabbi Yossi concerned where a guy is going to say, I'm after something for a day and then acquire it back? And he's trying to avoid the Trumas and Maasros. Why, according to Rabbi Yossi, why didn't we pause and say, make a delay for it to take effect? Just like the Rabbanan made in the beginning of the Brisa, says you delay the hefker taking effect because we are afraid of some people who are trying to avoid paying Trumas or Maasros by making something abandoned. The answer is, here it's different because since he said, I want it hefker for a week or a day, it shows he's more sincere about abandoning. He really doesn't want the field. He's not a faker trying to avoid paying his Trumas or Maasros. He's sincere about making it hefker. So if he's sincere, then right away it potentially could take effect if somebody acquired it, then that's it. But if somebody did not acquire it, then this Brisa says you could call it back because the second part of the Brisa is Rabbi Yossi. So bottom line is, how could it be that the first part of the Brisa is Rabbanan and the end of the Brisa is going according to Rabbi Yossi? So we're going to have two terutzim, and that's the whole daf. Amma Ula. Ula said like this. Seifa Name Rabbanani. The end of the Brisa goes according to the Rabbanim. So therefore, if it goes according to Rabbanim, again, what do Rabbanim hold? That when somebody makes something hefker, even if nobody else acquired it, you lose ownership of it. You abandon a car in the street, it's not your car, even though nobody claimed it. So if you abandon the field, even if nobody owns it, according to Rabbanan, it's according to Rabbanan that you're not the owner anymore. So then why, in the end of the Brisa, if you say the end of the Brisa goes according to the Rabbanan, why is it that the end of the Brisa depends if Zokaba, it's only if somebody acquired it, then it's not yours anymore. Why? Even if you just abandon it according to Rabbanan, that should be enough that you shouldn't be able to call it back. Answers the Gemara, Sefer Amir Rabbanan. The Gemara's question is, Amai ad shloi zacha bai, until nobody acquired it. bein hu bein achar. If nobody acquired it, it's still yours and you could call it back. Yochel Aksabar, you could call it back without doing anything. But why? It's as soon as you abandon it, according to Rabbanan, you lose ownership of it. So why is it that the Brisa says in the end of the Brisa that if nobody acquired it, it's still considered yours to retract? Answers the Gemara, Sha'ani Shanar Shavua Deloy Shchichi. That means because he's limited his hefker, he didn't say hefker usually means I make it hefker forever. But if he just said, I want a hefker just for a limited time, a week, a month, a year. So since he said it that way, it shows that he wasn't so sincere to lose ownership of it. He really didn't want to lose ownership. He's like on the fences. So then we say that it's a hefker, a quasi-hefker. Even Rabbanan would agree that this is like a quasi-hefker. It's still considered yours until somebody acquires it. So in that way, Rabbanan agreed to Rabbi Yossi that really, if you make hefker forever, I say I abandon this field or car, it's forever, not mine, fine. Then you could lose ownership of it. But if you say, I'm abandoning it for a week, a month, a year, so even according to Rabbanan, you're just on the fences, and therefore it doesn't show that you're really sincere about giving it up. And because of that, therefore, it's still considered yours until somebody acquires it. That's how this Brisa aligns up, that it could be both, it could be just the Rabbanan. Rish Lakish Amar, Rish Lakish says, mid the Sefer Rabbi Yossi, since the end of the Brisa is Rabbi Yossi, Reishanami Rabbi Yossi. Then the beginning of the Brisa is also Rabbi Yossi. Okay, he wants to align the Brisa, saying that the whole Brisa is Rabbi Yossi. So then, what do you have to explain? All you have to explain is that in the ratio of the Brisa, how can you say the ratio of the Brisa is Rabbi Yossi? The beginning of the Brisa says that if you're mafke the field after 3 days already, even if no one acquired it, it's not yours. Ein yochel aksabo, you can't retract it. But according to Rabbi Yossi, in order for it to be out of your possession, not called yours, somebody has to acquire it. So, answers the Gemara, the Reisha Hainatama, the reason why Chachamim said that even if nobody acquires it, it goes to Hefker, because people should not forget what the halachas of Hefker are. See, according to the way Rish Lakish explains Rabbi Yossi, is let's say you abandon a field, right? And if you forever call it, according to Rabbi Yossi, the person's field, as long as nobody acquired it, it's still considered the original owner's field, then what's going to happen when somebody acquires it from Hefker? He's going to think to himself that really I acquired it from the previous owner. He's not going to think that it was free and I got it abandoned. He's going to think that he just got it as a gift from the original owner. What's the proof it's a gift? Because the original owner, according to Rabbi Yossi, could retract as long as nobody else acquired it. So what's wrong to think that he got it as a gift? Well, if he got it as a gift, he's going to think that he's chayiv in truma maisrus midaraisa. He's going to be starting to give truma maisrus midaraisa and thinking that he's obligated in a Torah to give. Because when you get a gift from somebody, you have to give off, just like you have to give off taxes when you give a gift to somebody. If you acquired it, if you give a gift of a field to somebody, you have to give off trumas and maisrus. And he's going to think, this is not hefker. I got it from a gift from somebody. Even though the guy said it's hefker, I'm not, and it's not really hefker. I'm really getting it as a gift. And therefore, I'm chayiv and trumas maisrus doiraisa. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen is that if he thinks he's obligated with doiraisa, he's going to use this to give off trumas and maisrus on something that's only chayiv d'Rabbanan, or something that's chayiv. He's chayiv. He's going to give off trumas and maisrus on something that's chayiv midaraisa. He's going to try to say, okay, I have another field that's chayiv d'Oraisa. I'm just going to take the trumas and maisrus from this field to exempt the other field. But this field is patur min Torah from trumas and maisrus because you really acquired it from Hefker. But he's going to think he acquired it as a gift. So that's why we said to him that even if nobody acquired it, even if nobody acquired the field, it should be known in the world that it's Hefker, And if somebody would come to acquire it, he'll know now to give off that he doesn't really have to give off trumas and maisrus from it. It's hefker, and he's potter from trumas umaisris. So he's not going to be machmir to give trumas umaisris. Again, if you're not obligated to give trumas umaisris, if you're machmir and give trumas umaisris, something can happen.
My vocal cords.
Now the Gemara says another thing. So now the Gemara says that the Gemara gives you another question. If we are so concerned about somebody forgetting that this is hefker, so ihachi afilu miyoim risha nami lehav hefker. Why did they say that it becomes hefker only after day number 3? Right away, it should become hefker. As soon as a person should say it's hefker, if it's Rabbi Yossi holds, even if nobody would acquire it from day 1, it should be considered hefker, because what could happen is the same idea. We should say that if you think that right away it's not going to become hefker, why not? Somebody else acquired it. If somebody else acquired it, even according to Rabbi Yossi, it should become hefker. Amar Rabba said, as I explained before, the reason why we don't want things to become hefker right away, and if we make a delay, mitnei ha'amoim, because there are phony people, the mafkirin, they abandon their field with the intention of to not have to pay trumas and maasros. V'hadrim behind, and they come, we take possession of it. Oh, so therefore, they didn't allow this idea that if you say something hefker, it should take 3 days before hefker takes effect, because of these Ramoim, these phony people that are making something hefker and then acquiring it back. So we tell them, for 3 days, the word gets out that your field is hefker, and there is a chance that somebody's going to acquire the field before you get it back. So therefore, that takes care of the Ramoim problem. The other problem is that we should say that the only time you can't retract is as long as somebody else didn't take possession of it. That we say no. We say the Rabbanan said that after 3 days come, according to Rabbi Yossi, it totally disappears from your ownership, because people should know that it's really, really hefker, and when they acquire it, they're not obligated to pay trumas maasros. So the Gemara asks 2 more questions. Avol deraisa, midaraisa, loy lahave hefker. Midaraisa, it's not considered hefker until it's not considered hefker. That means after the 3 days, it's not really hefker. It's still considered yours. But midrabanan, they made it hefker, even though nobody acquired it, right? Mikan be'elech, it's hefker, even though nobody acquired it. According to Rabbi Yossi, it's really considered yours because nobody acquired it. So midrabanan, they made it hefker. Midaraisa, it's not hefker. So the Gemara asks, now we go to Omid Beis. So the dilma asul asuri min achiv ala patura min apatura ala chiv. What's going to happen is like this. A funny case is going to say like this. After 3 days, right? After 3 days, what's going to happen here is somebody is going to after 3 days, somebody is going to say, before somebody acquired it, let's say day number 4, nobody acquired the field. So somebody is going to say, the owner is going to say, I'm retracting. So we're going to ignore him. How can you retract after 3 days? But really, midaraisa, he could retract. It's only midrabanan say we can't retract. So somebody else is going to acquire it. When that person acquires it, really, he is obligated to give trumas and maasros midaraisa, not midrabanan, because it wasn't hefker. It's just Rabbanan said it's yours now, but midaraisa you have to give off trumas maasros because you didn't really get it from hefker, because his retraction was a good retraction. It's Rabbanan said we're going to transfer the ownership to you. So therefore, he's thinking that it's only obligated truma drabanan. He's thinking, really, I don't even have to give off trumas maasros anyway. And the fact that they're telling me that I have to give it off, he's going to say, I'm only chayav to give trumas and maasros midrabanan. He's not going to realize, because the guy was making noise, but really it's hefker and it's potter from trumas and maasros. Drabanan obligated to me to give off trumas and maasros. So we have the opposite case. it's really chayev and trumas midrabaisa d'oraisa, and he's thinking that he's only obligated midrabanan and trumas midrabaisa. That's the case. He's going to ma'aser from chiyev al patur, patur al chiyev. He's going to think that I'm potter, and he's going to use it to give off trumas midrabaisa from not its kind. He's thinking that really this is potter from trumas midrabaisa. And therefore, he's going to say, I'm going to ma'aser something that's really mechuyev on this, that's potter, or something that's potter on chiyev. He doesn't realize the severity that this is also chiyev daraisa. So that's the question. The question is, if he's thinking that this is only chayev truma d'rabanan, he's going to only use it to ma'aser things that are truma d'rabanan, and really it's obligated in truma daraisa. So answers the Gemara very simply. The Amar Lei, they tell him, ki ma'as, asat namin b'nei abei. When you're going to give off trumas and maestros on this, make sure you do it only in this pile. Don't, even though you acquired it from Hefker, and we're requiring you to give off trumas and maestros, we are also requiring you to only give off trumas and maestros from this bucket alone, and don't try to use it to take off the obligation of another bucket of tvua. Just take off maestros from this pack, from this property that you acquired from Hefker, and that's it. Meisvei, one more question, and that's it. Okay, Meisvei. The Brisa says like this: Hamafke es karmoi. He made his vineyard Hefker, completely Hefker. Ulashacher omed utzare, and in the morning he reacquired it again. He started cutting it again, showing that he's the owner. So really, it's Hefker, and then he's acquiring it again. So he's still chayev to give off the matnas aniyim. And the question is, why is he obligated to give off matnas aniyim? He got it from Hefker. Even it was once his, but he made it Hefker, and now he acquired it again. There's an extra pasuk that says that if you're mafkir your own field and then you get it back, you still have to give off the matnas aniyim, the gifts for the poor. But you potted from minamasa. Why? Because you were mafkir it, and then you got it back. So you potted from Maisa because you acquired it from Hefker. Bishlama, according to, now this makes sense that this Brisa, the way Ula explained, the Rabbanan Ketanila. It's the Rabbanan that said this Brisa. And really, the question is, but you acquired it next day. So really, if according to the way Ula learned, the Rabbanan said it doesn't take, you have to wait 3 days before Hefker kicks in. So we're going to say that really this Brisa goes according to the Rabbanan. And what the Brisa is saying, Potter min hamaser, means that you're Potter midoraisa from Meiser. But really, midrabanan you're chayiv Meiser, because the Rabbanan said that until 3 days passed, it's not really Hefker. So if you're mafker and then you take it back, you're going to chayiv midrabanan Meiser, and that was the previous Brisa. So the previous Brisa that we learned this morning, when we started learning, is when it's telling you that midrabanan, as long as 3 days did not pass, if you, the owner, acquire it back, you're obligated to give off Meisers, midrabanan. And this Brisa that says if you acquire back your potem in a Meiser is the Brisa, midraisa your potem in a Brisa. El Rish Lakish said that the previous Brisa is Rabbi Yosi. So am I potem in a Meiser? Very simple question. If this Brisa, the Gemara thinks, could go also like Rabbi Yosi, why you potem from a Meiser? Rabbi Yosi holds that you never leaves your ownership unless somebody else took possession. And here, nobody took possession. It's you were mafkir it, and then so it really never left your possession. The next morning, you're cutting from that kerem, from that vineyard, so it should be chayiv and meiser if this brisa goes according to Rabbi Yosi. So this is the answer. Amalach, Rabbi Shlakish will tell you, ki amira ana, one that was I talking about, that I said that first brisa is Rabbi Yosi. Oh, this brisa is Rabbanan here. This brisa goes according to Rabbanan, who hold that as soon as you relinquish, you say, I'm after it, you're not the owner anymore. Midaraisa, that works. Okay, so this is what ends today's daf. So basically, you just learned two different opinions. Of course, what Hefker is, Rabbanan's opinion, that if once you mafker it, nobody has to acquire it, nobody acquires it, you're still not the owner anymore. Rabbi Yosi holds that no. Rabbi Yosi holds that as long as somebody did not acquire it, you're still considered the owner. And we just try to align Bryce's, the first Bryce that either it goes according to Rabbanan totally or it goes according to Rabbi Yossi totally. And this Bryce over here, which we say for certainly goes
to
according to Rabbanan. Okay. That was Rabbanan.
I agree with Rabbanan.
Yeah. Okay, very good.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Have a good
Shabbos.